That is way better than stock. So how did I get this trigger to be like that? And also, how did that happen? Oh, that dot fell off. Well, that's what we're talking about this week, is my Hellcat Pro, trigger upgrades, and what happened with this optic. Stick around. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And this week we're going to be talking about some upgrades I made to the Hellcat Pro here, and also a little incident that occurred with this HoloSun EPS. Safe to say, I've got the scars to prove it, but let's jump into what I did here and what I think. This is my Hellcat Pro. I'm calling it the 2.0 because this is my second one I've owned, and I've recently been making some modifications to it. You saw the ports, you saw the Cerakote, you saw the stippling and the magwell and all the things, the light and whatnot. We did a full breakdown of it. But I had mentioned in the past that I wanted to find a way to tune the trigger just a little bit better. I prefer my trigger to have a 4-pound or less pull weight. So thanks to you all in the comment section, I found some options for some spring kits, trigger kits to improve this. So I went over to M-Carbo and found their trigger system. Basically, it's a complete upper system that modifies the spring weight and the pull weight for your trigger. So I picked that up. No sponsorship, just did it myself. Went to the workbench and did an install. So we're going to head to the workbench now. I'm going to show you what the trigger was like before, the pull weight of it with this Apex trigger. Then I'll show you the parts that I installed and then what the trigger pull was like after. Then after that, we're going to head to the range and get some time in with this and see how it feels and if it's more enjoyable to shoot. So let's head to the workbench.
What is up, everybody? We are at West Armory today, and we're going to be doing some live fire testing of the M Carbo trigger kit inside my Hellcat Pro. So I have the Apex trigger, as you saw in the previous video. That is my trigger of choice for this platform. I went ahead and picked up the M Carbo trigger kit, which is like a stainless steel trigger sleeve and some updated springs, and so we're going to see how it feels. I'm really enjoying it, just doing dry fire, so we can do some shots down range and see how it looks. So let's get to it. That feels pretty good, just some simple cadence. I'm going to grip down a little bit more and do a little rapid fire to see how the trigger responds, but the take up, the reset, that all feels really good, but the weight is really reduced. So let's load up some more and see what we can. As I mentioned earlier, the primary goal for changing these components is to reduce the trigger pull weight, to make it easier to shoot, and make sure that it still functions correctly, but also make the gun more enjoyable. I think a lot of people, when they test out guns at gun shops, they comment on the how the trigger pull feels, and it's not necessarily the reset and the take up, it's how heavy it is to pull. So uh, I think the factory pull weight, I'll find it on the website and put it on screen. I think it's like 7 pounds. Most guns are about 6 or 7 pounds factory in general. At least striker fires are. This one is greatly reduced with the combination of the trigger that I selected and the trigger kit. So we're gonna now rip. Um, we'll do some rapid fires and some double taps and see how that works. So I'm choose a different target and make sure you guys can see. And we'll go. Oh, that dot fell off. Let's find that dot. That will be funny for the bloopers. Well, that is a first for me. The dot just completely came off. I'll have to review the footage to see. The screws are intact. The threads are good. We'll shoot irons for the rest of the day. I'll address it at home. I'll check everything out and make sure it's good. But that was fun. So let's redo that, because I had to respond to that to make sure I wasn't dealing with an injury on my forehead. But I like to keep it real here with you guys. That is the first time I've dealt with that. I admit I didn't add additional Loctite. I used just the screws that came with the optic. And I've shot this gun already with the optic. So a couple videos ago, you saw I did a range day and I tested the gun out with the optic. Had no problem. So something must have changed between now and then with the screws, the screw integrity. But we'll do a couple more here, and then we'll hit back to the home office and give you our feedback on this trigger kit. Pretty good, pretty good. I'm liking the change it made. Let's do 3 more. Yeah, it's much more predictable. Much more predictable trigger. I'm not feeling that forced reset like the Tyrant trigger. So let's head back to the home office and talk about this trigger kit, and also talk about what happened with the optic. So let's do that.
All right, so let's now talk about what my thoughts are on the trigger, and then we'll get into the optic situation and give you my assessment of what happened. The trigger feels great. I really enjoy shooting this gun now. The ports and all that obviously make the recoil reduce and makes it really enjoyable. But the main thing I see with new shooters or new gun owners in general is that the first thing they comment on is how the gun feels in hand, which you want to make sure it fits your hand correctly because I have smaller hands. Some guns don't work well for me. For example, your 2011s, I can't access some of the controls easily, and I don't want to do that. So I want to make sure I can access everything comfortably and to my best advantage possible. But so the first thing we look at is how does the gun feel in hand? So this gun fits my hand really good. I can manipulate everything one-handed and no problem. The stippling definitely helps with the grip of the gun, so I enjoy that. So thank you to Wick Actual for that. But the next thing that people do is they side up the gun and they pull the trigger, right? And they talk about what that feels like. And if it's, hard to do, sometimes you see people shaking with their hands trying to pull that trigger, or if they don't like the type of trigger shoe they have because it's too scooped, or if they don't like flat or whatever their preference is, people talk about, oh, that feels good to shoot. And that good feeling with dry fire is primarily just how the gun feels in hand and the trigger weight or the trigger pull. So this trigger, and I'll put the number somewhere here on the video, that is the factory trigger weight. I don't like it at all. Not a big fan of it. The combination of having a smaller gun in hand with all that recoil factory and then all that trigger weight makes the ability to do follow-up shots difficult. In most defensive situations, it's not going to be just one shot needed. So I like to always make sure that the trigger is a little bit easier for me to pull, not unsafe. Again, I have a safety here on this trigger, and if I don't depress the safety, it's not going to bang, right? It's not going to click. So that's what you need to do. So that's the first thing I look at is how can I just make the trigger more enjoyable to shoot, but also safe and predictable. And by predictable, I mean I can feel the reset like that, and I know where it's going to be at is about right there, right? So some other guns, my Echelon specifically, is a little bit more difficult to feel the reset, but I don't want a very forced reset like the Tyrant trigger does for this platform. I can't speak for other platforms because I haven't tried the triggers out on those guns yet. I might in the future. But that's the first thing. So I think we accomplished that with the combination of installing the Apex trigger kit in the lower and then the M Carbo kit in the upper with the lighter plunger and the stainless steel um, trigger, the firing pin sleeve. That I found out was a breaking point in the gun. A lot of people had done some different part installs or done a lot of torture tests with the gun, and that sleeve being plastic, like many others are, but with this gun specifically, that can be a failure point. So upgrading that also helps with it cycling a little bit smoother because it's just the metal is smoother than the plastic, and then changing out the firing pin spring as well. All those springs being lighter in one fashion or another, and calibrated correctly makes this pull a lot lighter. You saw at the workbench the trigger pull gauge showing it's 3 pounds, 3.5 pounds, sub 4 pounds. Makes it really enjoyable to shoot, makes it easier to pull now, and the brake is still very much firm. The reset is still one you can feel and hear. Yeah, I think that combination is great. Now I've heard others mention the M Carbo trigger or other uh, flatter triggers, but this I think works for me for right now. I'm not going to be looking to change this out. But that was the first goal, which is to make sure that the trigger was more enjoyable to use and easier to pull and still safe and consistent. I think we accomplished that there. And you saw in the video, it still shot very flat with or without the optic on the gun. So let's talk about what happened in that little scenario because that was the first for me. So the optic in question, this is the HoloSun EPS, the bigger one of the two. They have this and the carry. For the record, this gun is cut for the Crimson Trace, and they typically have a ledge in the back that fits that specific optic. The Crimson Trace has the same threading So screw location as the RMSC or the Holosun K series, so the 407K, 507K, that type of stuff, which is also what the EPS works with as well. So the little notches there line up with these notches here, and then I had Laser Blade remove the rear notches. Everything else is still factory. What seems to be this situation, or the root cause, is these screws that I got from Holosun, these factory screws that came with the site. I did not add new Loctite to them, but the lesson I learned was that these screws, and I'll zoom in for you there, these screws are just a little bit too short. Not enough thread was grabbing onto the optic, or the slide, excuse me. So I had ran this at a previous range day, had no problems with it, but my guess is, based off of the amount of shooting I did that day with this gun, and then the amount of shooting I did the morning starting before it actually came off, probably loosened up the couple threads here, because it's only got maybe 2 threads that's grabbing on to the slide. So the lesson learned is that I need longer screws, and that I need to apply new Loctite to said screws to make sure I've got new bonding agency, right? That that definitely hurt a little bit. I took a little bit of a damage to my forehead. No blood or nothing, but it runs good still. The screws and everything are good. Nothing's damaged. I think that the only thing you'll see here is on the bottom side of the optic, that little like gashing is where it kind of slid off. So just a point to make is that it's important to get enough thread on your screws into the slide. Not too much, because it might affect your ejection plunger here, because on this hole here you'll see where the ejection plunger and the spring are. So if you screw your screws too long, it could affect that for this platform, and similar to like Glocks as well, M&Ps. A lot of your striker fires, that plunger could get affected by a long screw. So keep that in mind. If you're having issues with ejection, your screw might be too long. So I've got to find the proper screws for this, and make sure it's fit appropriately. But that was it. No real failures. The dot still works. I mean, glass is fine, no issues. I mean, it's a good, solid, robust dot. It's very solid because I took it to the forehead, right? So that's really what happened. I had some people ask me a couple other videos and questions when they saw it come off. What happened? Was it the 507 comp? It was not the comp. It will not fit this gun. And it's not because anything sheared off or stripped. I went ahead and looked at the workbench and used a flashlight and checked the threads. Everything is threaded fine. There's no stripping of the threads here or these screws. It's just, again, too small of a screw. So I'll have to, check that and correct that in the garage here in the next couple of days. But that was it. So now you know. So this is the part of the video where I give you my summary and assessment. And so up front, I'm going to say, first of all, thank you to everybody that recommended me checking out all the parts from M Carbo. I'm very appreciative of that. It has really made a big difference in the enjoyability of shooting this gun. This is definitely, once I get the optic situation sorted out, this is definitely going to be one of my carry rotation options. I haven't had any failures with the gun. I've had no issues. I do want to replace this sight, this iron sight, with a Tag Precision sight, because I prefer fiber versus these tritium night sights that are obviously getting blacked out from the ports anyway. So I definitely recommend, if you're looking to improve your trigger experience behind the Hellcat or Hellcat Pro, check out M Carbo. They've got a bunch of options on their website when it comes to this setup. You can get just the upper kit like I did. You can get the shoe by itself. People love their trigger shoes. You can get the full kit, trigger shoe, upper kit, all the springs, the whole shebang. Just totally revamp your internal systems. Check them out. They've got a bunch of videos online of people installing them. I'm not going to do that on here because I don't want my channel to be taken down for showing installs. But they've done the work themselves, and they did a great job showing how to install this stuff. Pretty simple, actually, if you ask me. Very similar to a Glock install process. So just check them out. Go to M Carbo's website. I'll put it on screen somewhere here. Not a sponsor, not affiliated with them yet at all right now, maybe in the future. But great work on their end on how to really improve the shooting experience of this platform with those parts. So that concludes this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe learned something, and also at the very least learned to get proper screw length for your sights. I've never had that happen to me before. So this is a first, but from what I've heard, many people in the industry have experienced this, so it's not nothing new. I just got to now, take care of my forehead every now and then, and we'll be good to go. So if you liked this week's video, let me know by hitting that thumbs up. It really lets me know if the videos I'm making are making a point and are working for you guys. And if you want to see videos from me, I do make videos every week. Consider subscribing. The channel is growing rapidly, and I really appreciate your support. If you have any questions about anything you saw in the video today, about my build here, I've got a full video, which I'll link in the description, about the breakdown of the entire gun, because people are asking about the magwell and the Cerakote and the ports and all that stuff. I've got a full video breaking this down, so I'll save my energy and have you go to that video. But if you have questions about the kit, anything that I experienced, the ports, how it's shooting, round count, what have you, or just anything in general, drop it in the comment section down below. The comment section is really what's helping promote the content. And the more comments we get, the more my content gets pushed to the top of the algorithm, and then more content like mine gets pushed, and we start normalizing 2A content on this platform. And we really need to do that because people are getting shadow banned, and we got to stop that. So comment down below something. What did you like about the video? What didn't you like about the video? What do you want to see from me next? Questions, comments, just drop them down below. Thank you all again for joining me this week, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.